Welcome to another episode of Living Your Sparked Second Half. Today's guest, Mary Jo Hoffman, is an artist and photographer renowned for her unique and personal engagement with the natural world around her. She's best known for her multi-year ongoing project, Still, where every day for over a decade, she's made a photograph of nature. No subject too small or ordinary. So, for Mary Jo, a former aeronautical engineer, this daily ritual cracked open profound revelations about the connectedness of all things, the importance of place, and her own life. She lives in Minnesota with her husband, Steve, and he's a food writer and author, and her puggle, Jack, her 16-year-old puggle, who she takes on walks as often as possible because she's always on the hunt for that day's still subject. She's coming out with a book called Still, The Art of Noticing that features 275 of the most stunning photographs that she's accumulated over thousands of consecutive days of daily shooting, accompanied by perceptive, deeply felt, and oftentimes humorous essays illuminating the insights gained through this daily creative practice that she has committed herself to. It's going to be released in May. You can pre order it. So, without further ado, let's get to the episode and you can meet Mary Jo and be inspired by her story. Today, I am excited to talk to Mary Jo because she has an interesting backstory about what she did before and what she's doing now. And what she's doing now is very creative. And I think creativity is something we could all do a little more of and we neglect. And so I'm excited to have you here to share all about your life and how you got on this path. It's always intriguing to my audience to hear these stories like yours. So welcome.
Thanks, Lori. Thank you. I'm absolutely delighted to be here. I'm thrilled. Thank you.
Yes. And Mary Jo is in a snowstorm in
I am.
Minnesota.
I
I'm so
am.
glad I don't,
March,
we are
March
not having any more
snowstorm. Yeah.
snow. So you're in Virginia. So, yes, like I was saying before I hit record, when I got the summary of what you do, and you just did a book about, and a lot of people write books, but your book
Mhm.
is different because it's about your creativity. It's
Yes.
your
Yeah.
book of a collection
It's
of
a, yeah.
photos, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an art book. It's like a coffee table book, but
Oh,
I got to write as much as I want. I wrote six essays, six personal essays. So it's a 320-page book, but I think my essays added up to about 60 pages. Anyways, it's a beautiful book. It's a gorgeous book.
so are the photos embedded in the essay?
The essays kind of stand alone at the beginning of sort of each section of the book is there's
Okay.
text and then there's a dozen or 2 dozen full bleed pages of artwork. So it's really an art book, a coffee table art book. It's published by Monticelli Fiden. Fiden's the biggest art book publisher in the world. And so it is available worldwide, which is thrilling for me.
Has it come out
And
yet?
it is pre-orders right now.
Pre-orders.
And
Okay.
I know the people that ordered through the publisher, direct from the publisher, are just starting to receive them. Most people order through like Amazon or whatever, Barnes and Noble, and the pub day, official pub day is May 1st. But
Oh,
I'm quite certain they'll arrive early.
okay. Sounds like a good Christmas gift for,
Mother's Day gift. I mean, it'll
Yeah.
arrive
Oh,
right in
Mother's
time for
Day. Yeah,
Mother's
yeah,
Day.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh-huh. Yeah, there's lots of
yeah,
occasions that you could have Mother's and Father's Day. Yeah.
yeah.
So let's start because your story is very interesting. And are you okay with me saying your age?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you're 59. I know you're going to be
59.
60 soon, but I don't want you to age yourself before you just every single day before you turn 60, you
All
just say,
right.
I'm
I've
59.
been
I'm
aging
59.
myself for 2 years. I'm
I
the
do
youngest
that.
of all my friends. And so I just say whatever age they are because we're all about the same age. And so I've been aging myself for years. But anyway, yeah,
So big
I turned
birthday.
60 in May.
Yes.
Yes.
And you started on this journey of creativity in your 40s. That's
Mid
and
40s. Yep.
yeah. And it sounds like your husband was on a similar path of wanting to be more creative.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
So we met when, should I tell the
yeah, I,
story?
I want to hear.
So we met when, well, we married young. I mean, not so young for our generation. He was 23, I was 25 when we got married. And so we've been married 34 years. And we both had creative ambitions. I was back then a pretty good amateur photographer, but I also did what I would later start to call visual journaling. I love collage. I do a lot of collage work. So, all visual arts. And Steve was a writer and wanted to be a writer, ambitions to be a writer, wrote poetry,
But these
wrote
were
short
hobbies.
stories. These
These
were
weren't your.
sort of hobbies. He tried to do writing full time as a young man. So anyway, what happened is I was, I don't know, unnaturally gifted in mathematics. I don't know where it came from. I
I
don't
didn't get
know.
that gene.
Nobody in my family did either. It's the craziest thing. Anyways, what happened is it made high school and college incredibly easy and fun because I ended up taking mostly math and science. And at some point, anyone who studied math and science, physics is really just mathematics at some point. It's all based on math. And I was good at math. So I went into engineering. I picked aerospace engineering because it was the most mathematics, honestly. And, if you think about orbital mechanics and things floating in three-dimensional space, and it's all mathematics. And so
I have a
I picked,
question,
yeah.
not to interrupt, but it came up because you think, or I think the general public thinks that math and creativity are opposite ends of the spectrum.
Oh, no. Yeah. It's maybe like a circle where they ended up connecting at some point.
Yeah.
I worked in research. So most of my colleagues were PhDs, and all of them were creative, had creative outlets, creative passions. The connection between like math and music is super well
Yes.
documented and
I was going
well
to say that.
understood.
A lot of,
Mathematics, if you think about it, mathematics is a form of abstraction, right? It's just a
mhm.
form of abstraction, and a lot of the arts are too. So
Yeah.
for
Well,
me,
languages, I think too, because
yeah,
computer programming, a lot of
yep,
the computer
all of it.
programmers played instruments. And I was
A
like, that,
lot of engineers, everybody thinks they're nerdy, but they're super creative. So
yeah.
I think they go hand in hand. I think that's been pretty well documented. I should look into it because I get asked that question a lot, and I should look into what they think the explanation is. For me, it's this idea of abstraction, even just comfort with abstraction, but it could be like a facility with abstraction, abstract thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyways, yes, it's a very common for mathematicians and by uh,
So it
extension.
wasn't so
Mhm.
unusual that this aerospace engineer had this love of photography.
No, I don't think so. I don't know how many engineers go into visual arts because that is kind of a left brain, right brain thing. So maybe that's a little bit more unusual. But anyway, I put myself through college. I had to get a job out of college. I was very good at mathematics, which made the whole engineering core curriculum very easy for me, and also made it very easy to get a job when I got out of school. And so I followed engineering because I was good at it and it was practical, not because I
Yeah, and
felt a
probably
call.
good income too.
Absolutely. Super.
Mhm.
I mean, I made a very good professional income right out of school. And I had 8 job interviews when I graduated college, and I had 8 offers. I mean, it was
Wow.
that kind of, that was back in the Reagan era.
Hmm.
So there was a lot of aerospace. We were doing the whole Cold War run up, and there was a lot of research monies for aerospace. Anyways, and I enjoyed it because I was good at it, but it was never necessarily a calling. And I always harbored these sort of creative hobbies. I don't know that I had ambitions to turn them into more than that, I had desires to have more time to explore them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I love doing them. I loved my creative practices, my creative hobbies, and that's what I did with all my free time. Anyways, and my husband was similar. He studied languages, he studied literature in school. He is a French, speaks French fluently.
Did you
He
meet in
wrote,
college?
we met right after the summer I graduated
Okay.
from college. We went to two different colleges. Yeah.
And it sounds like you didn't have kids, or do you have children?
We have two kids.
Oh, you do have two kids. Okay.
Yeah. So we met,
You
we
did
married when,
child rearing and you had that hobby.
well, yeah, I
Okay.
know. So this is kind of interesting because we met when we got married when I was 25, but we didn't have kids, started having kids for 10 years.
Okay.
And we weren't sure we wanted kids. We were traveling the world. We had a big professional income, having too much fun, wasn't sure. And then, of course, as happens, you get to those into your 30s and you think, yes, this is something that we would like to do. And so at some point, my husband and I switched. I was the primary breadwinner. We switched roles. He became the breadwinner. And then we have two kids. They're now 25 and 20. So what happened is when the kids, and then we were heads down, raising kids, paying mortgages, the whole thing. And when the kids went to a public school here called French Immersion School, I'm sure you have them in Virginia too. And as a public school, when they got elementary and when they got out, they could read and hear and understand French, but they didn't really speak French. So I thought I wanted them to be fluent. So after driving them across town for French immersion school for that many years, I wanted them to be more than just understand French. And so my husband's work is seasonal. He's a tax preparer. It's tax season right now. And we decided to relocate to southern France and put the kids in a village school.
That is amazing.
Yeah. And so they were, I think our son was 9, our daughter was like 13. So we did that. And then
That not many parents would do that. Wouldn't uproot their kids like that. I love that you are so committed to another language.
yeah,
I wished I had learned another. I mean, I learned Spanish, but again, like they do in school, you can do the schoolwork, but you can't
right,
go out into the world and
right,
interact with people.
right. I wanted them to speak French, but I also wanted them to know we live in the suburban Twin Cities. I mean, it's very quiet, it's very mainstream, it's very quiet, it's whatever. And I wanted them to know the bigger world. I
Yeah,
wanted
kind of
them,
vanilla.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
very vanilla. And I wanted them to know that the world was bigger and that I wanted them to know they could feel comfortable, right?
Hmm.
Beyond our very prescribed home environment. So it was a calculated, there was a lot of thought behind doing that because and I had shy kids. I had sensitive, shy kids. And so it was a kind of a gamble, right? I mean, I wasn't taking two extroverts and throwing them in a
Yeah.
school in Southern France. I was asking shy kids to do this very uncomfortable thing. But then we ended up falling in love with it. And that's another story. But while we were there that first time, we ended up going back and forth for the next 12 years. But while we were there the first time, it was the first time we had shut down all of our work at home and handed it off and hired people to oversee things and take care of the house and all that kind of stuff. We brought the dog with us. And so it was the first time when the kids went to school, and the French school system is 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. And typically the kids come home for a 1 hour lunch, but half of them stay for lunch. And we actually wanted our kids to stay for lunch because so they would talk to their classmates,
Right.
even though Steve and I were free and we could have had them home for lunch and
Yeah.
done,
But they would come home
but
and talk English.
they would talk English. So we had them
Yeah.
stay. So suddenly, Steve, for the first time in our lives, since we are, we have 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. free. And the kids are in school and we've put all of our businesses to rest for the semester. So we said to each other, I was reading a lot at that point. Of course, it's our mid 40s about personal finance. And one of the recommendations we saw is that you need to practice for retirement.
Mm.
And it was an interesting idea. And it was about the people, it was advice for the people that work, and then retire and then look up one day and they have no community, no interests, no hobbies. Their whole life was about work. And so it was
Yeah, a lot
advice
of
for them,
people I find avoid retirement because even if they don't like their job, they want to stay in it because
right? Their
they don't know what they're
identities
going to
there
do.
is what
Yeah.
they do. And
Hmm.
my husband's a tax preparer. He sees it all the time. It's very, very common, especially with men. It's incredibly common. So we read this advice, practice for retirement. So I said to Steve, let's practice for retirement. And well, we're in France because we have this 9 to 5, 9 to 4. And so we did. And he started writing every morning. And I was at that time, it was when blogs were big. And I had found an online community of people who were all artists sharing work. And it just looked fun. They were all supporting each other, and it just looked like a fun community. And I thought, well, I want to be part of that community, and I want to, you could participate in that community one of two ways. You could either make work and share it, so you could be a creator, or you could be a curator, right? So you could find art you liked and create a blog and share it with people and give people recognition and whatever. And I decided I want to be a creator. I want to
So it's kind
participate
of like
through.
displaying. You kind of like a curator is almost like a gallery owner, but
Yeah,
it's a website of some sort. And
right.
so you're highlighting other people's work.
Still,
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
still, people, those blogs, if you will, or Substacks now, they
Hmm.
exist still. People that are into fashion or into whatever, and they curate or find,
Yes.
good examples to share. So I wanted to
Was this
be,
a French community? Were these people speaking French or were they English speaking?
I
Yeah.
was in France, but I was mostly watching American artists. It was actually very, and I take that back. It was an international, but it was all in English.
Okay.
It is interesting when you're in a foreign country, you probably know this, and you Google something, your Google search results are different based on the location of your search.
Hmm.
So you will get, if you Google like artists, visual artists or whatever, you'll get, 10 different answers than if you do it from an American IP address.
Oh,
So
I did not know
yeah.
that.
Yeah. So that's
Even though
kind of
it's still in
interesting.
English because
It's
it's in your
still, yeah.
preferred language.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, it doesn't
Yeah.
surprise me.
Anyway, let's practice for retirement. And so I decided that I'd been a good hobbyist photographer. I had my camera there in France. Our whole family is nature lovers. We're all nature
Hmm.
lovers, and we hike, and we had the dog, and we have to walk the dog every day because he's a puggle.
Yes.
The
She
beagle
has a
in him does
puggle. I love
better with
puggles. Puggles are,
with a daily walk. Yeah. And
if
so
Harry Potter had a dog, I think it would be a puggle because I always think of that because of muggles.
that's really funny. That's really funny. That would be funny. Anyway, I decided that after much thought and brainstorming, I would do a photo a day of found nature, from my daily walks, and I would photograph it and share it to a blog. And I called the blog Still, like Still Life, or
Mm.
take a moment to be still, look at one thing at a time kind of thing.
And
Take
would
a
you take a few
pause.
pictures and then pick your favorite?
I always post one image a day. Yes, I do. I often edit two or three and then put it away for an hour and then come back and pick the one I'm going to post.
And
So I post one a day.
what did you allow your intuition to pull you to something?
The subjects?
Yeah, like how do you pick? I mean, when you walk outside, there's a zillion things you could pick from.
Right, right. Well, first of all, I started on January 1st in Minnesota. I don't know why. In my mind, so I committed to a one a day, 1 year project. I'm going to do one photo a day for 1 year. That was my project. And I, for some reason, picked a calendar year. Minnesota in January. I mean, really, there's nothing to pick from. So the problem when I started was not an overabundance of subjects. But
That's true.
anyways, I just got back from California and I just gave a workshop and I said to them, I don't think I could do my project here. There is so much to choose from. It would be like decision fatigue. I said, I probably would adjust in 3 months, but it would take me a 3 full months to adjust
That's
to
interesting. Yeah, because I
the
guess if you have a lot
abundance
of
thing.
snow, then
Yeah.
it's like whatever's sticking out of the snow is the subject.
If you look at my pictures from truly my January, February, March pictures, it's twigs, it's winter stems, it's dried seed pods, it's branches, it's very spare. I happen to be a minimalist, so those very spare photos of brown and gray subjects on a white background actually speak to me.
Mhm.
And it's a lot about negative space and that kind of thing. So anyway, I lost track where we were, what you're
Well,
talking about.
you're talking about you committed to doing one
Oh
photo a
yeah.
day.
Oh
Hmm.
yeah. And so Steve started writing in the morning. And what happened is these were just practicing for retirement. So now we're in our mid 40s, right? And the thought was that we'd graduate, we would retire in our late 50s. And then what happened is we fell in love with this village and kept going back and forth for the next 12 years. And of course, now retirement's pushed off somewhat indefinitely. It's not going to happen in our late 50s, but that's fine. But
But
what
you're
did
no
happen
longer an aerospace. When did you stop being an aerospace engineer? When you made the decision to go to France?
right before I went to France.
So you
So,
kind of
yes,
retired from that career.
I did retire from that career.
Hmm.
I did. And so the kids are in school now. We have time. Let's practice for retirement, which is picking up these hobbies we've always dabbled in it but never had time to do thoroughly. And what happened is Steve started writing, I started doing still, and within a year both projects got traction. And traction's a funny word, but within 6 months Martha Stewart Living magazine had called me
Oh,
and wanted to do
wow.
a feature. Yeah. And then within a year Steve had written he had written 3 pieces for our the Minneapolis Star Tribune newspaper, our local newspaper, and they won a food writing award.
Oh,
So suddenly we didn't, suddenly we had these hobbies that were turning into more than hobbies. And so we just kept going and we just kept going. So that's how it started. And now Steve has a book coming out on July 9th,
mhm.
memoir about us putting the kids in school and going
Oh,
down to that
neat.
French village. And it's
Is
with
this his
Prom.
first book?
It is. He's done a lot of articles. He writes a lot for magazines and newspapers. He's a food writer.
Hmm.
He's won the James Beard Award for food writing.
So is he somebody who goes and tastes food and then
No, not a critic. Not a
not a
critic.
critic? Okay.
No, it's his writing is very like personal essay, telling stories through food.
Okay. Got
You
it.
know, the book that comes out in July is a memoir. It's called
Okay. We'll
a
have to put that in
season.
the show notes too. We'll link up to all to your both of your
Yeah,
books because
yeah,
somebody might have an interest in what he did with what that journey was like, even
yeah.
no matter from a food
I
point of
think
view
I
or
think his book will do quite well. People will see it's called A Season for that. And the interesting thing is because it's a memoir about this period in France, I'm doing still this project throughout the whole memoir. And my book that comes out in May is called Still the Art of Noticing, and it's about this project. So the two books are, and one's a coffee table art book and one's a memoir, but they're completely complementary. He's writing about me doing still, and I have a lot of photos that I took while I was in France in the coffee table book. So they're
that's
very
so neat.
complementary. So
So
yeah.
how'd you pick the pictures to, I mean, that must have been hard, like picking
Oh,
children or something.
it's terrible. So I've been doing a photo day every day for 12 years. I haven't stopped. And we're going to talk about dailiness because I want to give you a challenge for you said you wanted to start painting.
Hmm.
So we should talk about dailiness. But yeah, I've been doing it every day for 12 years, which means I have over 4,000 images. And yes, I had to pick, there's 275 images in the book.
Uh,
And it was sort of impossible. What I ended up doing is writing the essays first. I could have picked the photos and then written the essays, but what I did is I wrote the essays and then picked the photos that illustrate the essays. Not illustrate, but in my
align
sense,
with
make
the
make
theme.
sense with those
Yeah.
essays.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking that might have been made it easier.
Yeah. It was nearly impossible.
Yeah.
And a lot of my, not a lot, maybe a dozen of some of my favorite photos didn't make it in the book, which is interesting because they just didn't fit that essay. The essays were about different topics. So,
Yeah.
but that's okay. There's at the books. I'm very proud of the book and it's beautiful. So
I bet
it
it
turned out
is.
great, but it was
Yeah. How
nearly
big is it? Because
impossible.
I know coffee table books have different sizes.
Yeah, it is. Well, it's 8 3/4 by 10 1/2. It's a nice sized coffee table book.
Okay.
And I'm looking around my table here where we talk because
I just made my
I
first
have one
coffee table
copy of it.
book. I just
What's that?
made I just made my first coffee table book
You did?
in Shutterfly.
Oh, sure, sure. I used to do that
No,
years ago. Yes,
yeah, it's a gift for some people that invited us to their castle in Scotland. And
perfect.
so I put pictures in it, and it's
Yeah,
very obviously elementary. But
yeah,
yeah, I can see how that could be so thrilling. But it does the image, and whether it's landscape or portrait or what's on the page, and unless you're doing one page, one picture per page, there's a lot of design work and I think creativity that has to go into how the book's going to look on a page.
yeah. I had a designer, so my publisher hired a designer to do the layout. So I wrote the essays, and they're my images, and then the editor, the designer, and I worked really closely for about 6 9 months to design the book.
Yeah, that's so
Um,
neat.
and it
Yeah,
was, I mean, thank God I had a designer because I couldn't have done what she did. No way.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what you realize when you and you hope you get your money's worth, and then you
Yeah.
realize you did when
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah. One of the things that I mentioned to you before we hit record was that I had done a photography class, like an iPhone
Mhm.
photography, basic photography course. And I've never had any, like, even in high school when you could pick these art classes, you could one semester or whatever at
Mhm.
college. I never did anything with art or how to compose something. And because there's a lot of position and how you position
Mhm.
stuff. And so I just thought, oh, this will be interesting. And I'll learn how to use the features on my iPhone better.
Mhm.
And what I didn't realize is how much, and it sounds like you're a lover. I will say that I am a nature lover when I pay attention.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
normally I am going about my business in a hectic and, hustle bustle way.
Mhm.
And I never stop to smell the roses. There's a reason for that saying. And so I really noticed when I was starting to take pictures for
Mhm.
this course that I looked through my lens differently.
Mhm.
It was a
Mhm.
totally different feeling of what was there,
Yeah.
what that was. And it's just so funny because it would be like I'd be taking pictures of kind of the same things that I would take. Oh, going on a walk with my dog, and I'm taking a picture of the sunset. In the process of taking the picture,
Mhm.
I just felt so much closer to nature
Yeah. Yeah.
than
And
I
it's
ever had
interesting because
felt.
people think, when you're taking a picture, you're kind of one step removed, you're behind the screen. But when you're taking a picture with full intention, so
Mm,
you're fully present, you're focused on that subject, and you're thinking about elements of composition. I'm sure you learned about rule of thirds in your
yes. Uh-huh.
photography
That's
class.
so
And
interesting.
you're looking at all the edges of the frame and making sure you only have in the photo what you want and nothing else. And yeah, that intentionality, that hyper focus, I would say that attentiveness it does something that makes those moments, I think I would say they get written in Sharpie in the memory. They become
Mm,
indelible. But yeah, I have the same experience when I make my photos too. Once I spend enough time with a subject, whether it's milkweed pods, for example, and which is I shoot on a white background, so it's very hard because that fluff is white and it's a very tricky. But I can tell you almost I have 4,000 images in my portfolio. I can tell you where almost every one of those subjects was found because
mm.
I'm so in the moment. I'm so present. I'm so focused when I find those subjects that it gets written in memory. So it's an
Yeah.
interesting
It's
thing.
like giving birth to your picture, where you gave
Well,
birth to it.
you're creating
Yeah.
little babies. I'm just doing them every day.
But
Maybe
it's so
I'm like a mama
interesting.
spider or something.
It's so interesting what you said because you think you're present when you're taking a picture, but you're really not. Your mind isn't there. Your
Mm-mm.
mind is on, oh, I've got to do this because, or you're thinking about the next thing. And it's so true that you're really in that moment.
You're in the moment. You're present. So one of the things, and this is why this project of taking a photo a day it's extraordinary. It's been 12 plus years. I haven't missed a day. There's some craziness involved in that, a certain level of commitment that people find fascinating. But what happened is that being present like that every day, it became essentially a mindfulness practice, right? Mindfulness is about being present. The only difference is, when you do meditation or breath work, it's an inner focus. And I'm just it's the I have the same level of presentness. It's just an outward focus on nature.
Hmm.
And but it's every bit a mindfulness practice. And so what happened is I did that first year, it got traction, it got some magazine press, but that kind of slowly went away after a while. And then what happened is I didn't want to stop. This is
Yeah.
so life affirming. It's such a positive way to live in the world, to
Hmm.
be this present. And you can't be present all the time. Our brains aren't big enough to take in everything all the time in that kind of hyper vigilance. But to be that kind of present for 5 minutes, 10 minutes a day while I look for my still subject, or that, I can do that. And it's a wonderful way to live in the world. I just
What?
happen to pick nature, but you could do it
Okay.
really with anything.
So is all this
Um,
outside? Because I guess nature is outside.
yeah.
There's not inside nature. I think of a house plant. Is that, yeah.
Oh, I don't. I believe me. In March, come March, because March in Minnesota is brutal. We're all ready for spring, and it's not spring by any means. And so I start photographing the house plants for sure.
Okay.
So I let myself off the hook from time to time. I also, after a couple of years of doing so many brown twigs in January and February, I started drying plants
Mm,
in hanging flowers upside down and drying them, and then I will allow myself to play with those in the off season too,
yeah. And there's
because it's
beautiful
just so
pictures of
lovely.
fruits. Like,
I did a whole series of cut up fruits and vegetables, which people loved. It was labor intensive the way I did it. It's very stylized. I happen to have just posted some on Instagram if people are curious, but I used a mandolin.
mm,
And so I did these very, very thin slices,
oh,
and then
wow. I cut
some.
myself bad on one of those.
Oh, my husband did too. Yeah, we went to the ER for the mandolin, and he
Yeah. I was
walked
thinking, is
in.
that the thing that,
Yeah,
yeah, it
he walked in
is.
with the paper towel wad around his thumb, and the
Yeah.
ER doc just laughed and said, "Mandolin, right?" He knew right away. Anyway,
Yeah.
yes.
So I have a couple questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
And let me ask them both at the same time, and because I might forget one. So, first of all, did you do it at the same time every day? And secondly, did you ever feel like it was a grind? Did you ever kind of feel like,
Good
oh my
questions.
God, what did commit to?
Yeah, good questions. No, I don't do it at the same time every day, but I've been doing it a long time. And so I've evolved into a routine that works for me. So I want to have my subject identified by late morning. And then I actually like it to sit on the kitchen I photograph on my kitchen floor because I happen to have big picture windows and skylights in there. So I use natural lighting. So I just happen to have good lighting. It's the best lighting in the house. So that's why I photograph. So I like it to kind of sit my subject, whatever it is, to sit on the kitchen counter for a little bit. So I can just do that subconscious thing
Mm,
where I can think about how I might want to photograph it. And then, so I have it sitting on the kitchen counter by, 11 o'clock in the morning. And sometime around 2, 3 in the afternoon, I will make a photo. So I will arrange it. I have rules, nothing man made in the photo. It's just the subject. minimally manipulated, but I do crush, I will tear, I will open, I will fold, but nothing man-made
Mm.
in the subject. And then I make my arrangement. Sometimes it's just a profile of a subject, but when I have more time, on days I have more time, I'll make a composition or an arrangement. I call them assemblage, an assemblage. And
Oh, there's your
then,
French.
yeah, I know. I didn't mean to do that. That came out. I'm sorry. That was so that was so pretentious, and that's the word in my head, and it just came out.
Well, it shows you spent several years there.
Anyway, and then I make my photo about 2, 3 in the afternoon. And then usually around dinner time, I edit my photo because my husband is a food writer and likes to cook.
Oh,
Um,
you're lucky you.
I know I was the home cook for 20 years, but he came to food writing late. And now he's all about food, and he does the cooking. So then I edit the photo and then I post it around 9 o'clock at night before I go to bed, and so that it refreshes overnight on the blog.
Hmm.
And each of those increments, here's the thing, that this is important, because if you're going to do one of these one a day assignments, which I'm going to encourage you to do, I'm going to challenge you to do, is that each of those increments I can do in a matter of minutes if I have to, right?
Yeah.
So if the day is busy, I find a surprising number of my subjects on the edges of parking lots. I mean,
Mm.
and I do the grocery shopping, I see something on the edge of a parking lot and it's on my kitchen counter. Then I make the photo making is actually the easiest and swiftest part. Once I've decided how I'm going to arrange, the composition part's actually still one of the more challenging parts. And then the editing, I can do very swiftly if I'm busy. And if I'm less busy, I enjoy the editing process, and I can kind of I will play with a single image for up to 20 minutes. But if I have to, I can do it in 2 minutes.
Mm.
And then the posting just takes another 3 or 4 minutes before bed.
And your
So I can
commitment
do the
was to put it on your blog. So that was, in terms of when you say commit to a daily thing, it seems like there's a process by which when you make a commitment, is that it's kind of like the accountability part of it, right?
bingo. That's
Mm.
this. So what happened is, when I was in France, so that I was conceiving of the project, what happened is I saw a meme. We didn't call them memes in 2010. It was by Austin Kleon, famous writer about creativity. And it said he had like 10 secrets for art, for creatives. And like one of them was, do good work and put it where people can see it.
Mm.
And I realized I had all these journals, I had a hard drive full of photos, and nobody could see them.
Ah.
So that's how I decided to do this put it on a blog thing. It was, put it where people can see it. That was pre-Instagram. That, I think Instagram, well, it wasn't. Instagram was just starting, but I wasn't on it. So anyways, that was the idea. Put it where people can see it. But that's what the putting where people can see it. That's what is about accountability. So like when you do your painting challenge,
Hmm.
your 30-day painting challenge, are we going to do 30 days or 100 days?
Oh, so yeah. So I did, and that's a good question because to me, and I wonder how much this happens to people, my brain starts to go, well, I have to do this because I don't have this. I don't have training. So I need to take a course first
Yeah,
before
no.
I start painting. And
Mm-mm.
oh, I have to do a picture, and a picture it will take me more than one day. So, like, where do you draw the line that says this is all you need to do?
So yes, we're going to design your dailiness project right
Okay.
now. You're going to do 100-day
Okay.
painting a day.
And my listeners, if somebody's listening out there to this, they have to
Uh-huh.
commit to doing it too, right?
Yeah, there you
Okay.
go. And what you're going to do is you're going to commit, and you're going to use like a 4x6 note card, or like a 3x5. I think you can buy pads of those watercolor
Yeah,
paper
they're
in the
smaller ones, yeah.
in the 4x6, like the
Like
postcard
like
size,
mhm. Mhm.
because we don't want it to be intimidating.
Yeah.
You're going to buy 100 of those. And then are you going to work in acrylic or
I
watercolors
have
or what?
watercolors is what
Okay,
I've got.
perfect. And so all you're going to commit to is 100 paintings a day. And you can decide whether it's part of a morning routine, an afternoon. But here's the deal: however you define the project, it has to be met. Like for me, on a busy day, a really, really busy day, and life happens. I mean, my mom's 88 and I'm the primary, and I spend many days now in ERs, but I still make my photos because I can not break my chain. I can meet my commitment by just holding a leaf in front of a white t-shirt or in front of a white wall and taking a photo.
Mm,
So it's just found nature on a white background. And so
mm,
define your project. So on those days that get super busy, if all you do is wet your paintbrush and make 3 dabs on the paint on the paper, you've met your criteria for the day and you haven't broken the chain.
mm,
And so what you're going to do is commit to not breaking the chain for 100 days.
mm.
So what happens is not breaking the chain is more important than the product.
Yeah.
But what you'll find after 100 days is that there will be 10 of those that are really good. And
Mm,
suddenly you have 10 good paintings after 3 months that you probably wouldn't have made otherwise.
mm.
So by focusing on not breaking the chain, you're taking away the perfectionism, you're
Yes.
taking away the procrastination,
Mm-hmm.
you're lowering the stakes. Like if all I need to do is wet my brush and put 3 dabs of color on there, or wet the paper and let the 3 dabs of color bleed into each other and see what happens,
Mm-hmm.
that meets the criteria. So there you go. By focusing on that, not breaking the chain, you've taken away a lot of the hurdles that people get stuck
Yeah.
with.
I think what,
Procrastination,
yeah.
perfectionism, all of those things, the inner critic, you would normally say to yourself, oh, this is a stupid painting. I'm not. Nope. The more important thing is that you not break the chain. And it really helps to have some accountability. So have a friend or an Instagram account or Facebook
Yeah.
account so that you're committed to sharing that with your daughter. I know you're close to your daughter, and just say, hold me accountable. I'm going to do a photo a day or, a painting a day. But so that's my advice to you. Just commit to
Yeah.
100 days. Don't break the chain. Make it simple. Make meeting your commitment doable in its simplest form.
Yes. Yeah.
And
Yeah. What
then
came
at the
up
end of
for
the
me?
day,
Yeah.
yeah,
What came up for me is you don't have to have a finished picture every day.
no,
You just have to, and that's what resonated with me when you said just 3 dots. You can have an end 100-day goal of a finished product. And maybe by 100 days, you have three finished products, but your
right.
commitment is to making progress on
Your
taking
yeah,
that
your
little
commitment is
action.
to not breaking the chain.
And you can take a
So,
picture each day of,
right.
and then over
Yeah,
time, it's like a
right.
time lapse photo in the end,
Right.
right?
Or you can, if you don't want to share the in-process photos, share it with your daughter, have somebody hold you accountable.
Right.
But then show your 10 best at the end of the project and say, I just completed my 100-day
Yeah.
challenge. You know what
And
I
like you
mean?
said, the 100 might turn into 200 to
Oh,
and then
4,000.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm telling you, for me, it became a mindfulness practice. Once you lower the stakes, once you just make it play and fun, and that the only commitment you have is to not break the chain, you're not committing to making fine art. You're not committing to even improving, but you
Mm-hmm.
will improve, but you're not committing to that. You're
Yeah.
committing to not breaking the chain. Then it becomes fun because the not breaking the chain's easy to do.
Yeah.
And then that allows you to have, play
Yeah.
with the rest of it.
Yeah. It
You're going to
reminds
have
me,
fun. You're going to
yeah, it
have fun. And I
reminds
can't wait to see what you do.
yeah, it reminds me of one of my students who started writing 10 minutes a day and now has written, I mean, she's on her second book series. So
Mhm.
the first was a
Yeah.
5 book series, and I think a sixth. She had a holiday book. So it was ultimately a 6 book series. And now she's, I think, writing the fourth book of her
Yeah.
second book series. Yeah. And it
Yeah.
started as a 10-minute, not breaking the chain.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Hmm.
mean, so many artists, when you read, a lot of artists end up writing about the creative process later in life. And everybody winds their way to the same conclusions. The process is more sacred than the results.
Yeah.
The results you put in the world, and the world does with it what you will, and it
Hmm.
doesn't matter, but the process is sacred. And the process for me not only is not breaking the chain, lower the stakes, and makes turns that work into play, but it puts me in a state of being that is
Mm.
life affirming by focusing on the process and not on the product.
Yes.
So anyways, it's very
Yeah.
powerful. It's so simple and extremely powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
I'm actually
Yeah.
excited for you
Yeah.
because
I
it's
I
so
didn't know
fun
this
to
was going to be
discover.
a challenge, but I'm
It's
up
so
for it.
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I find myself creating these hurdles that, well, I've got to do this and I got to do this, and it becomes so big
Right.
that
Everybody does it.
it's
Everybody
just
does it.
procrastination. Yeah.
Yeah. That's why the daily challenge, it breaks all those down. And that's why
Yeah.
it works. That's why
Yeah.
it's so powerful.
I
Yeah.
love that. So before we go, I always like to end with a question, but I want to know if your
Mhm.
kids stayed in France
Oh, so
or if
Eva,
they came back here
yeah,
to.
my 25-year-old Eva is no, she lives in San Francisco, but she's
Okay.
a designer and a filmmaker. So she went into a creative field. And my son is in college
Mm.
and he's in New York. And he passed the French fluency exam that would have allowed him to, he got accepted to the Sorbonne.
Oh.
I don't know if you know this, but university in France is free. You
Mm.
because he demonstrated French fluency, he could have gone free as a French resident.
Mm.
He chose not to. He chose to go to New York City, broke his mom and dad's heart a little bit, but
Mm.
he loves France and will end up there, at
Yeah.
least part-time
Yeah.
someday.
So
My
they're grateful that they are bilingual, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, yeah, I
That's
think
great.
so. I mean, for sure. And we all fell in love with the French village and the French
Mhm.
lifestyle. Both of, my daughter's a foodie, and it was nothing but beneficial. The only downside was I think we gave the dog a small dose of PTSD when we put him on the plane
Oh.
that he never really fully recovered from. He's got
Mm.
really terrible separation anxiety.
Oh.
Yeah.
Poor
So,
thing.
but which breaks my heart, absolutely breaks my heart. But other than that, it was nothing but
Yeah.
positive. Yeah.
Yeah. I did have a chance to spend 3 weeks in France when I went to a rugby, I think it was World Cup rugby.
Hmm.
And it was in France, and we stayed in a like an Airbnb, and it
Uh-huh.
was amazing because we stayed in a really small village.
Hmm.
So you really had to interact, but I
Yeah.
really don't know a lot of French. But when you're forced to interact with the locals, it really is an amazing experience.
Yeah.
So,
It's lovely. Yep.
yeah. Uzes. We stayed in Uzes.
Oh, sure. That's not far from where we were,
Oh,
actually. Yeah, our
yeah.
neighbor's daughter lives in Uzes. Yeah. Beautiful
Yeah.
town. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me what, as you're approaching your 60th year
Mm-hmm.
and new decade, what
Mm-hmm.
are you most excited about?
Mm. So, but I haven't been asked that question yet, and I don't have a prepared answer, so that's good. Let me see. What am I most excited about? So my husband and I became empty nesters just recently. Joe, our son Joe, is in his sophomore year, but he did a late January start. So he's only been gone a year. He's been gone just over a year. So we're 1 year into empty nesting. And I have a book coming out May. Steve has a book coming out in July. I turned 60 in May. I mean, it's a big year, right?
Hmm.
It's a big year. What am I most excited about? Honestly, oh gosh, I'm excited about so much. I'm trying to pick a most. I'm so excited about who the young adults our kids are turning into and the time
Yes.
we have been having and are having with them. My husband and I haven't traveled a lot since COVID, partly because we were both heads down working on books and we're both very anxious to do some traveling. And it will be our first time traveling without, four of us traveling, which is a whole different um so it'd be just us again, like when we were newly married. So
Mm.
I guess most excited, and then but also both of us launching these books means we will both be embarking on sort of our next phase of creative work.
Hmm.
Um, and I
Do you know what
don't
that
know.
is?
I don't know exactly. I have ideas. I don't know exactly what that's going to be yet. So if I did know that, that's probably what I would have answered. But because I'm in that hazy, I could
Mm.
do this, I could do that. It's still very hazy, but it's promising, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, anyways, those are the things I would pick among. But if I had to pick one, I'd say probably we've been here, we've been home since COVID, and I'm ready to start traveling again.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure you're anxious for nicer weather with
Oh, yeah.
that snowstorm.
Yes. Yes. I
Yeah.
am always. Yes. I know. Spring in Minnesota is my favorite. And some days it's a one day, we just go from winter to summer. It's 60-degree temperature change. And the weather is crazy and it happens so fast and so much all at once. And it's so hopeful and I love spring and it is my
Yeah.
favorite season. And it
Yeah.
is just
Yeah. There's a lot of
beautiful
nature
way. Yeah.
all waking up.
Yeah.
We live on a golf course and you can see the green just like popping up
Mm.
every
Oh,
day. It gets
starting to turn
greener
green.
and it gets
Sure.
greener. It's all brown and it just like it's got this little green film
Tinge.
on the top
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
super exciting. Yeah.
Yeah. We're a couple weeks from that now.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
thanks so much for coming on. And I have no doubt you're going to do something amazing next. It sounds like you're really in tune with all the things that will lead you
Mhm.
on the path that you're meant to walk. And
Thank you.
it sounds like you have a great partner in this game of life.
I did get lucky there. Yeah, I
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And I can't wait to watch your Instagram or wherever you're
Oh,
going to put
yeah.
your paintings
Yeah.
a
I have
day.
to
I
figure
don't
out how
care.
I'm going to present or how I'm going to, yeah.
I
So
can't wait.
I don't have
I'm
a
excited.
blog, but I do have a YouTube channel, but I've got to think through it. But
Yeah,
yeah, I
remember,
do
lower the
love the
stakes.
idea.
Keep it
And
simple. Keep it
yeah,
simple. Lower the stakes.
yeah, definitely.
All right.
Totally. All right.
Hey, Lori, it was
We're
really
gonna
fun.
not break the chain.
Don't break the chain. Whatever you do, don't break the chain. All right.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. Bye bye.